wanted to make this video for a long time. I have notes. I have taken lots of notes for this series over the years. I'm really nervous. Someone's just gonna come through the door and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Someone literally just did. You're kidding me. Inside Job is a sitcom that came out in 2021, and the final season, unfortunately, prematurely aired in 2022. If you're watching this, chances are you already know what it's about, so maybe I'll go in and edit in a video of me talking about a summary, but I don't want to do that right now. I, in fact, do want to give that background, so here's a quick summary. Inside Job is a 2021 sitcom following Reagan Ridley, who is this genius scientist working at Cognito Inc., a company where all conspiracies are real except the stupid ones, and you see her working with her coworkers and also her own father, who low-key kind of sucks, to navigate a balance between her personal life and her work life. Her work life is what she's currently prioritizing, as she wants to become CEO of Cognito Inc. and ultimately change the world for the better. However, throughout the course of the series, we see her grapple with this concept. We see her try to navigate love in part 2, and ultimately we see her sacrifice love in favor of a life changing the world for the better with Cognito Inc., or so she thinks. That's it. A little background about me. I was there since the beginning. I vividly remember seeing the first promo poster when it was revealed that Alex Hirsch, I think, was working on the show back in 2020. So I would have been 13 seeing that. I didn't watch the first part when it came out in 2021, but at the beginning of 2022, I did, because I remembered it existed, and then that became my personality for a few months. It was kind of crazy. And then when part 2 came out in 2022, I was there. I'm kind of still here. Formative media that you watch when you're 15 sometimes stays with you a lot, unfortunately. As you probably know, again, it was canceled in 2023. I believe January 9th, 2023 was the date. I was there too, unfortunately. I feel like there's still a lot you can say about the show that's oh, it should have been canceled, and personally I'd rather think of the show as what it was than what it could have been. Regarding my preferences and things that I was considering when ranking, it's very subjective, and if you can't tell what my biases are within the show, they're about to become very, very clear. And that being said, if you have a question, if you want to know a little bit more, leave a comment, or just be make another video, because I will make another video. I have so many thoughts on this show. That being said, this is one of, if not my favorite pieces of media out there. I consider most of it to be pretty good, at least to me. I would say spots 17 and 18 they're not my favorite, and they might be considered bad, but beyond that, I don't think the show is a truly terrible, unredeemable episode. I think everything has great parts, and you're going to see that when I get into the ranking. So we're going to rank all 18 episodes. Let's just get into it. I have my notes app. Let's do it. Number 18 would be Clone Gunman. I don't like this one. I'm sorry. I get so much secondhand embarrassment from this episode, and it sucks, and I hate it. I don't think it's a bad episode, but it's a rough watch. It is horrible. One thing about me is I cannot stand a good old-fashioned miscommunication. Say it with your chest. I'm sorry. And then I guess the action's fine, the animation's cool, and it's the Lost reference, whatever, but not my cup of tea at the end of the day. Tangent. You're gonna see that I tend to rank part 1 a lot lower than part 2 in terms of episodes, and that is because part 1 specifically specializes in making me a certain kind of uncomfortable with a lot of the humor that they use, and it's not necessarily reference humor. It's just whenever they don't really know what to do with jokes, I think they just go for the freakiest stuff possible, and I'm not a fan. That's just me. That's just my opinion. If you see me rank a bunch of other part 1 episodes really low, that is probably why. Moving on, number 17, part 2, episode 3, high school reunion, man. I hate this episode. Just kidding. I actually don't hate it. I really like the cold open in particular. I think it's probably my favorite ever, just because we get to see a little bit of personality and chemistry and missions that we don't usually get. Because the concept of an interesting episode is every mission that you are going to see is flawed, and something's always going to go wrong. There's always going to be a huge problem. So just seeing a mission where yes, it kind of does go wrong at the beginning, but also getting to see a little bit chemistry and what a successful mission would look like is very interesting to me. And You're going to hear me say this a lot, but I wish we got more of it. So the problem with Mike as a character, because this is like his episode, right? He gets really fleshed out for somebody who does jack shit. Could have been a better episode for someone else and focusing on someone else's backstory. Again, this is over-reliance on freaky jokes. I told you I was going to say this a lot. Mike doesn't have a personality beyond those jokes sometimes, and it pisses me off. That being said, I told you I love the cold open. I also love the B-plot. Just JR as a concept. Hilarious. Number 16. Buzzkill. I know I said I didn't like 17 and 18, and I thought they were the only like considerably bad episodes, but low-key 16 and 15 are up there. Even 14, I would say. So they go to the moon, and there's
Buzz Aldrin,
and he sucks. Like, oh my god. If you've seen this show, if you know the episode I'm talking about, he's so annoying, and like the twist with him makes me want to like throw something. If you cut away everything but the like character growth, there's so many other things that this could have fulfilled. And if I could have like subtracted 1 from the part 1 episode count and given it to part 2, I would have actually done it for this one, because I think that even with all my hatred of Clone Gunman, I think that it's a very important episode for like showcasing dynamics and whatnot. And this one just doesn't do that. Rand is like a principal character in part 1, and for good reason. And also he's funny, and this episode is kind of like Rand antics at their finest. That and like the B plot in the high school reunion, like he's insane. Number 15. Ghost Protocol. I don't think I'm alone in saying this. I just wrote in all caps, I hate Rafe. Again, this is one of those like freaky episodes where it's like, what are we doing, guys? And it's not done in a way that's like particularly enjoyable to me, and it's just kind of a hard watch. I like the Brett plot. I think I don't talk about him enough, but I do really appreciate like Brett as a concept and everything that he brings to the show. This episode did single-handedly fuel like lesbian headcanons for me personally, and I'm sure many other people. Like if it weren't for part 2, I would have still been on that train. Cheers. Number 14, Ron Tajan. Second one from part 2, and believe me, that's for good reason, because I don't like this episode. I keep saying like I think all episodes are good except for a few. It's funny, it's fine, it's whatever. This reads as like Schrodinger's Halloween episodes to me. Tangent. Fun fact, this show is so inconsistent with the way it portrays seasons. The in-universe explanation is because of the fucking like reboot, whatever. I'm sorry, you cannot have a Halloween episode and then 2 episodes later tell me that it is the season of summer. Are you lying to me? Bullshit. I'm like imagining like everyone on my dorm floor like lined up outside like listening to me talk. Horrible. Shout out Alpha Beta for low-key carrying this episode in my opinion. The A plot is like physically painful for me to watch, especially towards the end, but the B plot is so solid and I love it so much. Again, it gets freaky. I feel like they try to do it with a little bit more style in part 2, but it just falls flat for me personally. At the end of the day, am I happy that we have this episode out in the world? Yes. Do I wish that it was a different one and the plot points were very different? Yes. Number 13, we get like a batch of episodes that I consider to be like quintessential to like the show's identity as a whole, I want to say, because it's sitcom-y, it's self-contained, and it's funny. Anyways, number 13 is Sex Machina. It's quintessential, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily like the best. And that's a running pattern for a lot of these. I tend to not rank them super high. I'm just warning you right now. Not a lot of episodes from part 1 are going to be up high. They use a lot of reference humor in this one, and that's where they go when they falter with like situational comedy. They go to 1, freaky jokes, and 2, reference humor. Tangent. Reference humor doesn't work on me because I have very little like pop culture knowledge. Instead, I link the source material that it's from to the show instead of like being like the source material itself. Case in point, I forget which episode they made this joke, but I think it was in part 1. When they show off like the memory guns, Andre's like, oh yeah, I used it to like erase the memory of Breaking Bad from my mind, and then like someone else spoils it for him. It's probably Mike. They like say like who lives and who dies, and I internalized that, and then somehow I like switched it around. So I like gaslighted myself that the ending of Breaking Bad was different, and then I actually did watch Breaking Bad. I wasn't thinking about Breaking Bad when I was watching people die. I was thinking of how I gaslit myself through reference humor in whatever episode that was. It's a good episode. I like it. It's solid. It is good at what it does. Not the best, like, again, quintessential episode, but it's good. Number 12, we get another one of the batch of, again, I'm going to use this phrase more, quintessential episodes with Breakfast Club. And I like this one a lot because, again, it shows like the sort of like mission dynamics, and it's like an extended version of that. Everyone gets kind of solid development in this one, and I really love that. And also the animation kind of locks in on this one. There's not a ton of examples of this across part 1, and kind of even less in part 2 now that I'm thinking about it. But it's nice when it does. I remember when the show came out, a lot of people were saying like, oh, it doesn't look as ugly as every other example of like adult animation that's come out. And I'm like, well, no shit, A, but also B, like, the characters are still kind of like static. Like, they're still like models, and there's not a ton of movement. Yeah, I like this one a lot. Again, like, I'm not the biggest Brett fan out there, but he got his time to shine, and I appreciate that a lot. Number 11, Mole Hunt. I like this one. It's not self-contained, but that being said, this is a funny one to me, and this is a good one for me when I think about like background and development. And that's actually something that kind of like the build-up episodes in both parts, that being Mole Hunt and Project Reboot, have in common, which is like we see more of side characters and we see more of like what they're up to. I really like getting that development. Mole Hunt kind of reads as more like part 2-esque to me. When I think of like the quintessential like part 1 episodes, I'm not thinking of like significant background for a lot of the supporting cast, which sucks because like I want to know more about them. We should have gotten more of them. Tangent. I did a rewatch of this show when I was about to turn 18, and frankly, there are so many little background details in Mole Hunt, and this is kind of like where I would go if I was going to look for more Easter eggs. There are a lot of tidbits of backstory, there are a lot of tidbits of just like overall personality, and sometimes I forget because it's just like one and done. Joke done. And I don't know. If somebody hypothetically wanted to dig a little bit, they could. Number 10, another classic part 1 episode, and kind of like the episode if you really think about it. Like, I'll go more into this in a second, but I am of course talking about part 1 episode 3, Bloods. So for a lot of people, I think this is like the thing that they associate with the show, which is a shame because I don't think it is by a long shot the best that the show has to offer. Do I think it is very good? Yeah, kind of, but it's not the best. I remember there being a lot of flack for like anti-Semitic tropes, and I am in no way like liable to say like whether this is true or not. That being said, I don't think it was the crew's intention, and I think they did their best to make it seem like it was not their intention. And considering that the whole show is kind of like borderline satire, it makes the criticism seem kind of pointless, if you will. Because this is a quintessential episode, it's a freaky episode, and it kind of throws me off a little bit on rewatch, but we get some gems here. It's structured very well, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't extremely emotionally sound. When I rewatched this, I think I was tearing up a little bit at the end with the court scene. I'm sorry, Blue Bloods, for putting you in the bottom half, but I like part 2 more because I'm extremely biased. Okay, now we get to the fun ones. I just got hit with like a random wave of serotonin. I love talking about this show, guys. I could talk about this show for hours, provided I am alone from society and not in a public space like my common area study room. Number 9 was Nosferatu. I just realized it's a reference to Nosferatu, like Dracula. Shout out to my one friend for making me read Dracula when I was 16. That was a formative experience, and I can't believe I just got... Okay, this is a solid episode. And I think it fleshes out Tomiko really, really nicely. And she's a member of the supporting cast that is kind of just like joke done. So it's nice to see her get some development. I only have one bullet point for this, and it's about a guy who was in the episode for like 4 minutes. Yeah, I wrote, he has 4 minutes of screen time. Free him, to be honest. Yes. Oh, the animation locks in for that one scene, the fight scene, and I really like that. Tangent. Fun fact, the van scene with Gigi and Ron and Reagan in the van, and they're talking about like the vampires, that is a trailer scene on Netflix, and I'm not sure what triggers like the specific trailer scenes when you hover over the profile, but fun fact, this is one of them, and it is, in my opinion, my favorite one. And when I was 15 and I had watched this, sometimes after I'd watched the show, I would just go like find it and like the Netflix like 30-minute laughs, or like we think you'll love these, or what was the other one? Watch in one weekend. That's my personal favorite because like no wonder you can watch it in one weekend. But I would go and like navigate through and find it, and I would watch the trailer scene, and I did that a lot. Anyways, this is a really good episode. I really like this episode. Now we're getting to the serious stuff with number 8, the season 1 finale, Inside Reagan. I just wrote down, hashtag whatever. There is so much to be said, and that being said, I think a lot of it has been said already by people who are probably more verbose than me, so I will have things linked in the description, and you should go check them out. There aren't a ton of video essays out there, but the ones that I do really like and I do think are really cool, I'll link them. For being a comedy, this show is extremely good at making you feel sad. And you know what was sadder? Was when it got canceled on January 9th, 2023. Tangent. I know where I was when I found out the show got canceled. I was at a dance rehearsal for a drama show that I was in. And then I went home that night. I flopped into my bed. I opened up twitter.com. First thing I see is the cancellation note from the creator. And I just flopped into my pillow. I was like, oh my God. But it's okay because I never fucking left. Number 7. Unprecedented, the first episode. I want to know if this was the actual pilot, because it's a very good balance of like the world building and like the action that the show is supposed to be. And I think it's really cool, and I think it does a great job at balancing both. In preparation for this video, I dug through YouTube last night, and I wanted to make sure that I had seen like every video essay there was. Which, A, there aren't a ton, but also B, I had seen all but one of them. And the other one that I haven't seen, I'll link it below because I actually really liked it a lot. I was talking about how I believe the show mentions around 50 to 60 conspiracies throughout its runtime, and this had the overwhelming most with around like 20 to 30, I want to say. They're really good integrating it. Like, it doesn't feel insanely rushed. One thing that bugs me a lot, like when I think back on it, is like transportation logistics, weirdly enough. And if I had just watched the first episode one more time, they do kind of explain it away with like apparently there are like trains that go everywhere. I can't get too into this because I don't want to make this video go insanely long. And basically this show is goated. Number 6, Project Reboot, Part 2, Episode 7. Again, the same thing with the Season 1 finale. There are people out there who can analyze this a lot better than me, and I will link some of my favorites in the description. So you should go check those out. Again, where you see a lot of the dynamics that we got from like Mole Hunt, they're kind of elaborated on here. I think everybody mostly gets their own time to shine, with maybe the exception of Gigi, which pisses me off, and she should have gotten more development. It's just a solid episode. I like the college flashbacks in this one. As somebody who's in college right now, it's funny. It's really funny to me. Again, this show is so good at like being funny, but also like making you feel things. Number 5, and the last Part 1 episode on here before we get into my extremely, extremely biased rankings of the top 4. Number 5 is none other than My Big Flat Earth Wedding. This is good. I wouldn't consider this to be like one of like the quintessential episodes. I would say it's just on the fringe. But that being said, it is my favorite episode in Part 1, and it is my favorite for good reasons. Because it is one mission. We get to see it like succeed and fail many times over the course of the episode. I really like that stuff. Everyone kind of gets their own thing to do, and they all kind of like intersect kind of well, except for Gigi. Again, they keep sidelining Gigi in Part 1 and parts of Part 2, and it makes me mad, and I want to go in the writer's room, just like see what they were cooking, because maybe they had something that either got cut or they were going to save it for the future, and we didn't get it. I would like to know. I like it a lot, and I think it's funny. Tangent. I used to write comedy in high school competitively, so I had like scripts, and it was sort of like write your 8-minute sitcom. So I think part of the reason that this show stuck with me for so long was because I was writing comedy for a good like year and a half after, even after it was canceled. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't one of my biggest inspirations. I'm about to get real annoying. Let me check the hallway. Number 4, We Found Love in a Popo's Place. I love this episode. I ranked it number 4 because unfortunately, A, I think this is super funny, or B, I'm like, what were you guys doing? What were you guys doing in there? In the writer's room? Like, they should have let me in. Let the record show that I am an extremely biased fan of the show in the sense that I love the episodes where Reagan and Ron are together, and I think their relationship is really fun, just like fun to explore, fun to think about, fun to consider what could have been. If we only got the 2 more episodes that we were promised in the initial ordering, maybe we could have gotten to see more, but oh no, we couldn't have gotten that. Netflix, when I get you. Anyways, if you ignore all the bad jokes, this is a really good episode, and this would be my favorite episode. Good to me. Good to me. I like it a lot. It's super cheesy, unfortunately, and the jokes just aren't that good, which prevents me from ranking it higher. Out of concept, like, if you cut out all of the bad jokes, it's the perfect episode to me. It's self-contained, it has every reason to be like part of like the quintessential category, but people either dismiss it because A, it's not part of part 1, B, the jokes are bad, or C, people hate Ron. I don't know why you hate him. Like, there was so much potential. Whatever. Tangent. Fun fact, if you dig online for long enough, you can find A, either flat like panels of storyboards, or B, storyboards themselves that are synced up with like beta audio and even in some cases final audio. When it was first coming out, a lot of artists were like sharing their frames, and there are a couple from bits of part 2, and I think it's really fun. With Ron, he never has any stubble in the storyboards. I think it's so funny. It's hilarious to me because like that's just some guy. Anyways, much love to this episode, but it just did not hold up on rewatch for me. And the other 3 are kind of peak. Number 3, Appleton. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful episode, but I just think the other 2 like capture the show's energy better for me, and I enjoy watching them more because Appleton makes me cry a lot. I just wrote down sob as my first note, and I actually did cry the first time I watched this. I watched the whole part in a day. Huge mistake. I should have like paced myself because like if I knew that was the last bit of content we were gonna get, I would have like slowed down. It's written really well. I think the score randomly like kicks in this episode specifically. Part 2, I think overall has a better score than part 1, and they kind of go overboard on more like emotional notes with the music. It's mostly just chords, like it's not a revolutionary score by any means, but I think it improved a lot in the second part. When I was grabbing images to put in the background of this video, I actually found another really good example of this. If you look at the beginning of part 2, episode 6, there's a little music motif in the cold open right at the beginning. If you want to take a look, give it a listen, and it sounds really good in my opinion. The animation is fine. It's not amazing, and like it doesn't need to be because this isn't an episode with a lot of action if you take out like the basketball game. I think there's better animation in another one of these, and we'll get to that in a second. The animation is made except for one scene at the beginning where it's when Reagan goes to meet Ron at the beginning, and she's like, yo, are you breaking up with me? And he's like, no. And that one scene, if you know what I'm talking about, oh my God, they put crack in that. Like, I swear, like, they made that for me. Again, if you want me to rant about this show and it's not like a concrete ranking, let me know and I will. I'll do it, I swear. What could have been? Sigh. Number 2, part 2, episode 5, fretwork. I love fretwork, guys. Again, because part 2 kind of dropped off with viewership, I think. I don't know how the trending stats were for part 1 because I didn't watch part 1 when it came out, but part 2 I think only got to about like 7 or 8 on top TV shows, which I think was the reason they canceled it, and there just wasn't a ton of viewership maintained because they didn't promote the series. I recommended this show to one of my friends last year, and she texted me. She was like, I finished watching it. And I was like, yay, we can talk about this. And then I saw her in person. And she was like, wow, I can't believe they ended it with like Rand taking over again. And I was like, you're kidding me. You haven't seen the other 8 episodes? Hilarious. Anyways, this episode is kind of like the perfect episode. It is better than all of part one, I will say, in my opinion. It is the perfect self-contained episode to me. The jokes are very consistently good, and another thing that is very consistently good in this episode is like the animation randomly. Like it locks in. I don't really know how to describe it, but like the character rigs look very different, but not necessarily in a bad way. They look a lot smoother and a lot more expressive. And for some reason, this is kind of only in Breadwork, which is really strange. If by some reason anyone from the crew who worked on the show sees this, any background info you can give me, let me know. I want to know everything possible about this show because I love it so, so much. I love Breadwork, man. That being said, there is one shortcoming that Breadwork has that I think number one does better. And that would just be like the overall continuity. Because there is one episode I think does everything Breadwork does. And maybe even like a little bit poor, but it just has that like element of like overarching plot that I think just locks it in. Number one favorite episode. No debate whatsoever. Number one. The best episode, in my opinion, would be How Reagan Got a Grove Back. Again, I'm an extremely biased fan, and that 100% is why I consider this episode to be my favorite, if not the actual best. And I think that surpasses like a lot of flaws that are in the episode. Like the B plot is not amazing, but it's kind of overshadowed to me, and for good reason, because everything that you need to know for the season is going to be set up in episode one. And you may not see it, but I see it. And I know what they were cooking. I truly cannot express how much I love this episode. I love it so much. I think the character animation is pretty solid across most of it. Part of it's just like everyone kind of gets like a wide display of emotions throughout the episode, which I think is very nice and kind of lets like the rigs like show off what they can do. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass and I just don't understand how 2D animation works. But again, if anyone worked on the show and you want to correct me in the comments. But that's my number one. That's my number one, and it wasn't hard to rank them because I was only 18. But that being said, do you have favorites? Do you have least favorites? Let me know. I am always down to talk about this with people. In conclusion, just some final thoughts I had without going too much into rant territory. I think that parts 1 and 2 are tonally different, and that is because just like part 2 takes on kind of like the romantic aspect of things. And the closest things that I would say to part 1 episodes and like the quintessential like same highs would be episode 3, which is the high school reunion, which I don't like, but whatever. Episode 4, episode 5, and episode 7 to a degree. Whereas like episode 7 feels more like Mole Hunt, but then I also did say Mole Hunt feels more like part 2. And we could go in circles about this forever. With part 2, they kind of rely on reference humor a little bit less. They rely on freaky humor a little bit less. And it's great. It's great, man. I miss this show. And I wish we got more, but we didn't. So you kind of have to make do with what we have. And what we have is pretty freaking good. I think that's it on my part. And if you have thoughts, let me know. But if not, hope you enjoyed. And I hope you have an excellent day.